So, brother, tell me just a little bit more about what are you trying to do? What's your moonshot? And let's keep going.
Okay. So, what my moonshot is, I just want to reinvent the capital markets in Africa.
Yeah.
Because there are 1.3 billion people currently that are in Africa, and that number is expected to double in the next 30 years. So we are looking at things that work with human capital development. I think that's the first thing. And what we want to do is we want to use the artificial intelligence, we want to use the blockchain technology, and we want to create these trading applications that utilize these technologies.
So one of the things, Alois, is I think, don't focus on what technology will you be using. Focus on what problem you want to solve. When you say, I want to use blockchain or I want to use AI, the application the solution that you need may not need any of that stuff here. So don't just for the sake of using the technology, you should never do that, because one of the downside of many entrepreneurs are they have the technology and they're looking for a solution rather than saying, here is a problem I'm trying to solve. What is the technology I need? And there is a very, very likelihood that you don't need AI or blockchain for the things you're doing. So always focus on the problem. Tell me about the problem that you're trying to solve, and what is the problem, and what would the world look like when the problem is solved, and how people will be using it. Because once you know that, then you can figure out how to build it.
All right. Okay. So currently we have the finance industry and we have the banking industry, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a $1 trillion industry, but we have 3.5 billion people that live under $2 a day.
Yeah.
Right. And most of this is because they don't have the financial knowledge, they don't have the financial IQ. So financial inclusion is a big barrier to all these things. So then the problem is that most people don't have knowledge and access to the capital markets, right? Because of all this knowledge that you need the skills, you need the knowledge, you need persistence. So then I was asking myself, how is it that you can get the finance knowledge, the investing knowledge, how to create wealth in the capital markets? How do you make it accessible to more and more people, to make it a whole inclusive? Because not everyone is Warren Buffett, not everyone is like Ray Dalio's. So then that's when I stumbled onto artificial intelligence, and I could see that you can actually make an application that does the trading and investing using the principles that Warren Buffett uses, Ray Dalio uses, and you can then make an application that you can make available to so many people, and then they have access to now the markets through a simplified app, if you understand what I'm saying.
So, but there are at least 10 companies that are already doing it. So, if you look at the companies that have this robo investments, right? So Robinhood, there are 10 companies that are already doing it. What is it that you'll be doing that is going to be different and is going to be better than what they're already doing?
Mm-hmm. All right. So when it came to trading and investing, right, and actually creating the artificial intelligence, I think when we started with the robo trading part and everything, it was more as an experiment so that we could test out something into the market very, very quickly. But what we what we're working on, the most important application that we're working on, is one that uses we're mixing up 3D printing, solar technology, and artificial intelligence. What we want to do is we want people to have solar panels in their households, and they start to generate solar, right? And then they use that solar with artificial intelligence to see how much usage is in the house, right? How much usage do you use in the house? And then you take it a step further, because now we are talking to a multimedia company, and we're getting them to say, okay, let's convert solar energy into mobile data. Let's convert solar energy into money. We're going to talk to a bank. So now you have people that are generating solar from their households, and then they're able to exchange this for data. And you could actually then say people are printing their own money. So the first phase that we were doing was we were just trying to test out the market.
But how would they do that unless there is someone else who needs that solar? How are you going to transfer that energy that I am creating at my house, unless someone else out there who needs the energy, right, and they're willing to pay for it? then it doesn't really help create. There is no value creation here because you have to now store it and you have to transmit it. Unless you store or transmit, you can't use it.
I see. I see what you're saying. Could you just go through that one more time?
So let's assume I have a house and I have a lot of flat roof. I create lot of solar energy and I'm only using a small bit of it. Rest of it is not being used. So now number one thing I have to do is either store it or I have to transmit it to someone else who needs it that is willing to pay for it. And once they are willing to pay for it, either you can get a cash in return for it or you can get the data for it. But at the end of the day, there has to be someone who needs it. Unless there is someone else who needs it and someone who is willing to, and you have to transmit it to that person who needs it.
I think like through the partnerships, because like you see, they've got these step-up transformers and these power transformers. We've actually been going into the market and more people want to have like a solar solution that can allow people to use more solar. So when you get an app that allows you to convert your solar into money, are you not then able to print your own money, you could say, and then print your own data? Because so many people are in need of electricity.
I know, but how would the solar be used? I mean, to print the money, somebody has to be able to use it. So unless you open up a store where people come and pay you to charge their phone, unless people come there to charge their devices, and if not, you have a solar that's going to go waste because energy is coming in. Either you have to store it or you have to use it. And if you're not using it for your own home, what are you going to do with it?
What about translating it into data and then using that data?
How do you translate the solar energy into data?
To data. So I think the most important thing is the partnership with the telecommunications company. Because all the people that have...
I know, but telecom company will only give you more data because they can make money from the solar energy that you have access solar energy. If there is access solar energy, they cannot monetize. Then how can they give you additional data? So they have to be able to create some additional value from the access solar energy. So unless they say, okay, open up a store in front of your house that takes all the telecom people who have my phone to come and do a free charging. And if number of people are going to come there and do the charging of their phone for free, we will give you some data in exchange for that. But there has to be a usage. There has to be somehow the people are willing to pay for that excess energy. If there is no payment for excess energy, there is nothing you can do with it.
I see what you mean. And thank you so much for that. I actually hadn't considered that. Hey.
So my point is, you're so focused on these ideas of converting solar energy into data, but you have to say, why would someone give you access data? The only reason someone gives you access data is they're able to take your access energy, convert them into some way of monetizing it. That means somebody will pay for it. And if there is no one on the other end paying for it, why would they give you the more data? Right. So
I see.
Unless there is a grid, you can put the power into the grid and the power company pays you. Then you can use the money for anything else, whether it's the data, whether it is to buy a house, whether it's to put the roof on the house. You can do anything you want as long as there is money coming in for the access.
Oh, so it's like the power company is the one that would see the value in having all that energy? Is that what you're saying?
If power... only time the power companies will find the value is if your house can be connected to the grid and they can sell the power to someone else, but the power is coming from you and they're selling it for a higher price than they're paying you. Think of them as a middleman. So they're saying, I'm going to pay you 2 cents and I'm going to charge 3 cents from someone else. That's the only reason they will do it.
Oh, okay. I see that. So I think the next step for us is to actually go to like a power and utilities company so that we could actually then formulate a solid contract as to how to do this. But thank you so much, Naveen. That's actually something I had not even seen was wrong with like the model I was using. So thank you so much for pointing that error out. Eh?
So my point is that's the first thing is, but that has nothing to do with AI here, right? I mean, you know how much energy you're using. You don't need AI for it. The only time you need the AI is to be able to predict that, hey, in the month of November, how much will I need? And that will be based on my past thing, based on the temperature in the at that time of the month, based on how much vacation I take at that time of the month. So AI is generally only needed if you're going to predict something based on that. If simply you're trying to find out how much energy you use, you just need a meter and it will tell you how much you're using and how much excess you have.
Oh, okay. I thought the AI would be more efficient in like the regulation of the energy. Like
No,
say you can sell this amount of energy and keep this amount of energy over
only
like a longer period.
Yeah, on the longer period of time, if you need some prediction. So if you say, hey, right now I know I'm only using 10% of it and I have a lot of it free. But in the afternoon, the temperature is going to go up. I'm going to use the air conditioning. The amount of energy available to someone else is going to be much lower because I'm going to be using more. So AI can help you figure out at what point of time during the day or night, how much free energy you have. And the question really is when you have a free energy and everyone else doesn't need it either because you don't need it, so your neighbor doesn't need it. And then the question really comes down to is what happens to that energy, access energy. Do you just store it and use it when you need it? Or do you store it when you're not using it and then release it when everyone else needs it?
Okay.
But that becomes a much more expensive because now you have to have a whole bunch of batteries and stuff to store that energy.
Have you heard of graphene?
Yes.
Yes, and I mean we've been working with a nanotechnology company in Botswana, and we're actually developing these graphene supercapacitors and these smaller batteries that are going to make storing like solar energy much easier. I think that's where I was then taking it from storing to then like
Alois, I would not go anywhere near that because that industry is going to be massive for someone else. You don't want to be building your own batteries to store. If there is a graphene and if there is a battery storage that's possible, whether it is Tesla doing it or there are other companies who are going to go out and use the technology to build the batteries. So you should not be in the business of building the batteries. You should be, if you really need the batteries, buy them from someone who is in the business of doing it. There is no way you'll ever be able to get any better at it than other people who are spending billions and billions of dollars on it.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank you for that. That actually saves me a lot of trial and error and everything. So, okay, Naveen, I wanted to ask you something, eh? You've got like 3 children and everything. So, and they are well studied, and so I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think is like the most important thing for like someone who's like 21 and they have their own startup? Like, what do you think is the most important thing in terms of like knowledge?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that they are supposed to learn so that they're able to then execute on like their ideas? What do you think is the one thing?
I mean, one thing is to always be intellectually curious. That means always wanting to learn something. And when you learn something, you can't just be shallow. You have to have a lot more deeper knowledge of it. So you can't just start throwing the word nanotechnology and graphene and this and that. You have to know exactly what it means and how it is being used, where the technology is today, where it is going. Because unless you have a little more depth to what you're talking about, people will ignore you. People will not take you seriously. So when you say something, you want to be able to dig at least one level deeper, if not 2 levels deeper on it, so people take you seriously. The second part of the thing really being, is young is to large extent, you have to be confident. At the same time, you have to stay very humble, knowing that you don't know everything. And at the same time, people want to see a confidence in you that you believe in yourself, right? So there has to be a tremendous amount of self-confidence. But when it comes to humility, you don't let go of humility when you're talking to someone, to always show them that you know everything. The minute people believe that you think you know everything, they back off and say, look, if he thinks he knows everything, he's not willing to learn anything new. So why waste time spending your time and energy talking to the person, right? So the other thing is that surround yourself with people who believe in you, because there are going to be a lot of people around you who are going to say, oh, it is not going to work, it is not possible, you're too young, you're too dumb, you're just not, you don't have enough money, you don't understand this stuff, it's too complex and you can't do it, right? There are always going to be those naysayers. So your job is to ignore all the naysayers and then surround yourself with people who believe in you, people who are going to uplift you. And it's okay for the naysayers. Ask them, what is it that I have not thought about? So it's always good to hear from people who, the things that you may not have thought about. So that means people who are even critical of you can sometimes help you by pointing out the things that you may not have thought about, right? So it's not that you ignore the naysayers, you ignore their predictions, but ask them what would they advise they would have, what are the things they're finding, are there some easy loopholes that you have not thought about, right? So you can ask them the questions. It's okay to share your ideas, get people to ask you questions so you know if there are some things that you have missed out in your thought process, you can fill the gaps. But don't worry about when they say, hey, you can't do it. Ignore all of that.
Right? Okay. Okay. Do you want to say something else?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So Naveen, we opened up an NGO actually. Aside from the whole the business side of things, like the applications we want to build, and in our NGO we want to teach like software development, exponential technologies, like the 3D printing, nanotechnology, AI, and blockchain and cloud computing. Right. Want to go to like public schools, especially like in Africa, and like empower these kids with this knowledge. But I wanted to ask you, like, what is the most important thing about teaching people about exponential technology? What is the one thing one shouldn't miss when they are trying to get their point across?
Yeah. So the couple of things here, to do that, it doesn't have to be an NGO. To me, the NGO is really fundamentally the wrong model. And the reason it is that if you want to do a small good in the world, you start a non-profit. If you want to do a large good in the world, you want to create for profit, and even the small amount of profit you make allows you to help more people. If you're making no money, you have to keep raising more and more money, and then eventually people stop giving you money. So you have to be able to create enough model where you are able to generate just enough profit so you can help more and more people at the same time. The second part of the thing is that in terms of exponential technologies, you have to look at the stuff and saying which one of the technologies are about to hit the knee of the curve. So as these exponential technology are doubling, they are flat until they hit the knee of the curve and they become literally vertical at that point. So you have to see what technologies are very, very early and what technologies are nearing that knee of the curve. So for example, today, the things that it's not also the one single technology, but tends to be the confluence of many technologies that allows you to solve the problem that were unsolvable before. I believe at this point, the healthcare is probably the one that is probably the most ripe for disruption. And the reason for that is the human body that used to be people looked at as a black box, as a physical black box. And now we are able to understand that at a much more deeper, at a molecular level. And once we can think of this body as a biochemical body, and then we can apply massive amount of artificial intelligence, you are able to manipulate the body that was never possible before for each individual and personalize it. And that was never ever possible before. So when you start to think about those type of things, 3D printing, people get so enamored by 3D printing. The 3D printing is not new. 3D printing has been around for 35 years. In fact, it's so old that all the patents have expired on 3D printing. But most people still believe... Yeah, all the patents on 3D printing have expired, right? So my point is, people are suddenly waking up and say, oh my God, 3D printing is the next big thing. Well, it has been the next big thing for 30 plus years, right? Right. So my point is, now you do have 3D printing that allows you to print in many more types of material, right? So you can 3D print your food. You can 3D print, the things that, like clothes, that was never possible before. So you can make a custom clothing. Someone come and say, hey, I'm going to go out tomorrow night. I need to go a wedding dress, and somehow instantly your avatar measures everything, print, and you say, here's the design I want, and they can 3D print it, and it will be right then and there. You can pick it up. That is completely custom designed for you, right? You can 3D print your food. So if you know what things are good for you, what things are bad for you, they can print the custom food and custom bars.
Is there anyone who's printing food?
Yeah, there are many. Yeah, there are several companies that are currently doing that. Yes. So yeah, so I think there are a lot of interesting stuff you're going to start seeing that in the 3D printing that will come along. But you have to think about what applications you're going to be using them for, and what is the biggest need. So in Africa, the needs may be very different. That means, can you provide them with the nutrition that they need in the cheapest form? And understanding for each person when they are baby versus when they are old, what are the nutritions is needed, and you can print them for that, for them right there. So you can give them a chewable vitamin or chewable supplement that they need, and print them on the spot for each person. So if they have a blood report, so if they come back from the doctor, they have a blood report based on whatever is deficient in their blood, you can 3D print them a chewable tablet right there for them to say, here's what you need. Right? So you need the vitamin D, you need the vitamin C, you need the vitamin B12, and you can print them on the spot and give them one single chewable gum that they can chew, and that's designed just for them.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
So what else? What else do you want to talk about?
Okay. Okay, fine. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about my NGO, and I wanted to ask how I can make it like a profit venture, and then and how to actually make it a profit venture so that I build like a self-sustaining economic engine. How would you go about it though?
Well, again, anytime you're creating a value for someone, either you charge for creating that value, or you essentially create the relationship with them that allows some other companies to create value from that relationship. So for example, if you have these children who can't afford to pay for the education, so you can give them the education, but once you have a close relationship, what other companies want relationship with those people that you have relationship with? Would they buy the SIM card from them? Would they buy the data plan for them? And these people are more willing to buy it from you than anyone else. So you can make a small margin, or if they need more data, they will work with you to say, hey, since you're giving me free education, I need data, can you work with me? So you essentially become that middleman for all the companies who want to get access to these people, whether they want a bar of soap, or they want the SIM card, or they want the data, or anything else that they want. Even that they have very little money, they still buy something, and they're more willing to buy it from you because you're helping them than from someone else.
You were saying that you become like a middleman, you say.
My point is, if those people, either you charge them for teaching them something, but if they can't afford that, every single person, it doesn't matter how poor they are, they buy something, whether they buy fruits, or they buy vegetables, or they buy a SIM card, or they buy a bar of soap. My point is, there are a lot of companies who want to sell them something, whatever they buy, and they're more likely to buy it from you because you're providing them free education than someone else who is just simply want to make money from them.
Oh, I get what you mean. So it's to find the companies that are willing to pay for, you could say, the skills and all these things that these kids will be able to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much for that. It makes things, I think, more interesting, because then you have to teach the kids usable techniques and skills. So also you have to go to the company so that you can ask companies what type of kids they'll be looking for and everything, and then you start forging the relationships based on.
And you, in addition, so that is also very good idea, Alois, that the companies will pay you to have these kids who have the skills because you're teaching them, so you can get money from the companies to essentially bring these kids who are skilled now. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you so much, Naveen. I think if you want to ask me anything else.
No, Alois, I think this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for taking time to talk to me. And if there is anything else, please reach out to Laura and I'll be happy to answer them for you. All right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alois. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So I will be.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.